Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a figure, and this is the robot Damashii side Eva, Evangelion Unit 0. So when I was sitting down to this, I thought, this looks extremely similar to something we've seen very lately. So similar in fact that it's exactly the same price. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the real grade Eva Unit 0. So these are very comparable products right here. That is the figure, which is the robot Damashii, and the absolutely astounding model kit, which is the real grade. Of course, this is the DX version, and both of these right here cost around $55. So if you're looking to get yourself a fairly small scale Eva Unit 0, which one is better? Well, let's find out. Once again, this video right here would not have been possible without those absolutely fantastic, awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan. So if you do want either of these products, both the links are down there in the description. Now here we go. So first up, when it comes to the robot Damashii Eva Unit 0, this is what we get inside of the box, and just like usual with a lot of robot Damashii figures, there's quite a lot in here. But of course, first, we're going to be taking a look at the figure itself. So first off, that right there is the robot Damashii Eva Unit 0 just out of the box, and I've done nothing but make it stand there. When it comes to robot Damashii figures like this one right here, or most figures in general, especially Japanese ones, this is a mix of the actual colors of the plastic and paint applications. And just to make an example of that, the vast majority of what you're seeing on the torso is the color of the plastic. So that is, the plastic is molded in that shade of yellow. But some sections, especially those that are multicolored, do have some paint on them. For the most part, these look fantastic, but I did notice that the sections that are painted yellow are a slightly different shade to that of the plastic yellow. No big deal, but if you're finicky about those sort of aspects, you will notice that. Besides that though, all of the paint applications look fantastic. They're all extremely crisp, tidy, exactly where they need to be, and any kind of factory issues that I've noticed a lot before with some Robot Spirits figures, like little nub marks, seam lines, etc., aren't present for the most part here. Actually, I'm not seeing any at all. This thing looks fantastic. Everything else about this, the general look, the silhouette, the proportions are all pretty much perfect, and this is undeniably an awesome version of Eva Unit 0. I have to say there's some pretty cool attention to detail on this I really do appreciate, like, for example, like the clear green part in the top of the head, a beautiful looking clear green part for the eye in the front of the face, the extremely crisp paint job on all of those sections around the neck, including those tiny little red segments. That is impressively good. We have some great black pinstriping all up the side, which is very impressive, and the most impressive aspect to me is the fact that they even painted the bottoms of the feet. Now that is crazy. Even down to the black lining on those circles, they painted the bottoms of the feet. Honestly, I am super impressed by that. So there is that full 360-degree spin of what the robot Damashii Eva Unit 0 looks like just out of the box. Once again, this is incredibly impressive looking, the paint applications are fantastic, and I think it's about time we compared this to what we get with the real grade model kit that's in and around the same price. So there on the right hand side is what the real grade Eva Unit 0 model kit looks like, built out of the box with a little bit of panel lining. But besides that panel lining, this is exactly what will look like straight built. So I will mention I cannot see these side by side right now because that'll be done in editing, so this is more so for you to make your own decision which you like the aesthetic aspects of better. One thing I will mention, however, is this model kit is built without the shoulder pylons, so it isn't a direct comparison, but we will take a look at the figure without the shoulder pylons later, so that'll be a little bit more of a direct comparison. But speaking of a direct comparison, well, there they are side by side, and as you can see, the real grade is actually that bit bigger than what we see with the robot Damashii figure. Besides the size, there is a lot more stylistic differences between the two. The main one would be that the robot Damashii is a lot more on the slender side than what we see with the model kit, because that model kit's rocking some massive biceps compared to this one here on the left. So if you like your Evas slender, long, and a little less segmented, then you might like the figure that much better. Also, there's a quick look at the pylon section of the real grade that is also included, and it also features some functional aspects you will not see on the robot Damashii. So if you are going to make a decision between the two, it's, well, bigger and buffer or smaller and a little bit more slender. Also, there is a bit of a color difference. The model kit right here, that is a little more towards yellow. The robot Damashii is a little bit more towards orange, and I'll pop an image in the middle of what it actually looked like in the rebuild of Evangelion movies so you can see what the actual color was like, once again to see which one you prefer. So now moving on to the accessories, and here is the Robot Damashii Eva Unit 0 with absolutely everything that it comes with. And this does come with quite a lot in the box. Before I go through everything one by one, here's a bit of a flashback back to what the real grade model kit came with. Once again, that is the DX variant. If you want to see more about all of that stuff, you can check out that review. But as you can see, these come with pretty much the same amount of stuff in the box. Loads of hands, a bunch of weapons, the ability to change between two different variants of the Eva Unit 0, and the biggest difference between this and the DX set is the fact that this comes with a big old Gatling gun, and that comes with the positron rifle. It is also worth noting that this comes with some handcuffs and alternate parts to display it as the sealed version of Eva Unit 0. So the first of the equipment we have in here is the pallet rifle. For the most part, this is all in that military green color. Flip it around, it is the same on the other side. We've got one bit of color, which is that orange there. And there's just a quick comparison to the one that came with the real grade variant, which of course is a lot more detailed. There's a quick example of what it looks like attached. The hands are rubberized, so it is quite easy to get in there. The real grade variant definitely wins out when it comes to detail, but if you're looking for a more subdued look, then this right here would be the one for you. But what the real grade doesn't have is this right here, the Gatling gun. Personally, I feel Gatling guns are very underrepresented when it comes to giant mecha and giant non-mecha alike, so this makes me extremely happy. On top of that, this does have a rotating barrel, which makes me even happier. The Gatling gun also features a very nice two-tone paint job, or should I say, one paint, one plastic, and that is the non-metallic sections up front on the barrels and around on the rear, and that gunmetal around the main body of it. That's a nice contrast and looks pretty damn cool. Next up in here then we've got the progressive knife. So unlike the real grade where we got 4 different variants, that's 2 folded, 2 unfolded, as well as the ability to store them away inside of the shoulder pylons, this time it is just the one. Sure, we only have the one in here, but there's a lot of nice paintwork on this. We've got some brown down on the grip, black midway up, 2 shades of metallic silver on the blade, as well as that red detailing. So this may only come with one progressive knife, but it is a very nice looking progressive knife. Next up in here then we've got the parts 2 converted from this variant with the shoulder pylons to the variant without those shoulder pylons. Changing forms is very simple. You just remove all of the parts of the upper arm that attach to the pylon. It's just a single part that then attaches on, and it looks just like this. As for down at the legs, once again just pop off a couple of grey parts, pop on a couple of white parts, and that is it. This is extremely simple. Also, don't forget there is a chest part as well you need to attach, which looks something like this. Next up in here, we've got the umbilical cord. This is made out of a posable wire material, so you can bend this whichever way you want. And that just connects into that little hole in its back. That is what it looks like attached. And I will mention that this is pretty handy for some poses. If you find the figure gets off balance a lot of the time when you're trying to pull off a pose, just attach this and use the wire for support, because it is quite robust. Speaking of support during poses, we do have a little action base adapter in here. Sadly, we do not have an included base, which is usual with these Robot Damashii figures. That just attaches onto the crotch section like so. It holds on pretty tight, and of course that's for attaching it to any action base that has a 3mm peg. And that right there is a quick example of what it will look like up on the action base in some kind of pose. So there we go, there's a direct comparison between the Robot Damashii and the real grade Eva Unit 0. So once again, the biggest difference of course is the real grade is a whole lot bigger, a little bit more yellow. It does include some decals in the box, that's why that's up there in the shoulder, but besides that, once again similar, but a lot of design differences between the two. So the last thing we've got in here are the parts for displaying this as the sealed version. That of course is the handcuffs, that cross, and that open entry plug hatch. Once again, attaching these is simple. You just remove that entry plug hatch section that was on there the whole time, replace it with the alternate part, then stick that cross down into the plug hole. To attach those handcuffs, you just pop off the hands, attach the handcuffs, and then pop the hands back on again. Finally, there's what it looks like in sealed mode, and I will mention that I did find these a little difficult to attach. They tend to clash with the arms quite a bit, especially those big fin-like segments on the back of the forearm, so this does take a lot of finicky wiggling to get it into position. So now finally moving on to the articulation, and I will occasionally contrast it to the real grade right here. And before I do that, I will mention that I did unintentionally dye my fingernails a manky shade of kind of purple. So that's why I was avoiding touching these for the vast majority of the review, but now, well, that's pretty much impossible. But here we go! So at the neck, we've got a ball joint up top, as well as this nice double jointed neck. Look at that, that's the king, or should I say queen, of giggity goos right there. On top of that, when it does raise its neck up, that little front brown section of the neck does move up too. That's a pretty cool mechanism. And when it comes to the neck joint here, the robot Damashii absolutely trounces the real grade, which has a much more limited range of motion in the neck. Moving down to the torso now, and we've got one killer ab crunch. Just look at that. There it is all the way to the back, and once again, there it is all the way to the front. We also do have some side to side here, which is very nice as well. In with the real grade, and with this, there it is all the way to the back, so that is a little bit better, and there it is all the way to the front. So both of these are good, but once again, it is the Robot Damashii action figure that wins out. At the shoulder next, we've got a ball joint up here. There is that arm all the way up, and that's definitely impressive. And as usual, we've got the rotation all the way around. Back to the real grade, and so far, this seems pretty much identical. It is a lot more delicate feeling, of course, because it is a model kit, but at the shoulder, pretty much identical. Back to the Robot Damashii for that elbow bend. So we have that bend right there, but if we pull down on this joint here, which I will say feels absolutely horrible to do, you do unlock quite a bit more of a bend right there. So pretty cool. In comparison, there is the real grade, which, well, is even better. Both kits feature pretty much an identical pivot up here. This is a lot more secure on the Robot Damashii than it is on the real grade. That segment up there is probably the wonkiest joint on the entire kit because it is inclined to fall off, including that armor piece. So I would definitely say the Robot Damashii wins out there. The wrist on here is the typical wrist you see on these kind of action figures, which gives you that flexion as well as rotation. But the real grade does have that absolutely incredible rotating mechanism inside of its forearm. Once again, this does make it a little bit delicate, but when it comes to that forearm articulation, the real grade definitely wins out. It may not look as pretty though. Inside the waist of the Robot Damashii, we have an up and down dropping mechanism. This is independent for both sides, so you can drop one or drop both. The real grade has a very impressive, yet once again delicate, drum mechanism as well as a dropping mechanism. So that is a ridiculously detailed joint in there. I'm not going to mess around with it too much in this video, but if you want to see more, check out that full review. Inside the upper thigh, we do have a little bit of movement right there. Some twist like this. The real grade doesn't have that kind of tilt in and out, but it does have a very nice twist with a cool inner frame, almost looking like musculature kind of motion in there. That is impressive. Back to the Robot Damashii, as for that knee bend, it is a 2-point knee bend. The calf section recesses very nicely into the upper leg, so that does look very pleasing. And that right there is the equivalent bend on the real grade, so in and around the same. The knee armor on the Robot Spirits, that can move up and down. The knee armor on the model kit, that can move up and down as well. The ankle on the Robot Damashii features an extend and flex up at the upper part and a side to side pivot down at the lower section. As for the real grade, everything happens down at the lower section, so that's flexion and extension. And we've got a peg which allows for the side to side pivot right there. The armor on the front of the Robot Damashii's ankle is on a simple ball joint, so you get a little bit out of that, not a lot. And what you get on the real grade is pretty much similar, if not a little bit more. Lastly then, the Robot Damashii has a bend at the toe, and so does the real grade. However, the real grade's one looks a little too far up its length, compared to this right here, which looks a little bit more natural. So on the whole, the articulation between the two is quite similar, but of course the action figure does win out when it comes to being more manhandle friendly, being a little bit more robust, and some of the range of motion is a little bit better. However, the real grade is not far behind and has more mechanical detail in the way that it moves. So that right there is it for the review, and the Robot Damashii Side Eva Evangelion Unit 0 Kai is definitely an awesome little figure. The articulation is great, the accessories are awesome, and it just looks astounding. If you're putting it side by side with the real grade, it does hold up quite well. And when it comes to value, it's kind of hard to say which is better. When you're taking the amount of stuff in the box, the real grade does seem better. You spend a lot more time with it while you're building it. But if model kits just aren't for you, and you want something that looks a little bit more anime accurate, then you might be looking for the Robot Damashii. If you like posing figures, if you like it to be a little bit more robust, something for photography, something that will hold up to a little bit more abuse, then definitely, hands down, you want the figure. But if building model kits is your thing, you cannot do much better than a real grade. There's some of the most impressive model kits, if not the most impressive model kits around right now. Either way, if you want either of these, both are available from HobbyLink Japan, and the links are down there in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more figure and model kit reviews, and I'll see you next time.